So this video is going to be somewhat of a continuation of a video I made recently. I watched a video of her talking to a couple of other like right-wing commentators about how she went from the left to the right. And in that video didn't go into a lot of detail. I was left a little bit unsatisfied. Then I found this and it looks like she goes into a lot more detail about her story of being a leftist activist here. It looks like she reacts to a speech she gave as a young leftist, so that'll be interesting to me, because one of the things I said was I'm curious to hear her somehow articulate what were the things she believed in and why she believed in them. So hopefully this will get into that a little bit more. Let's skip this first section, because I think this is the debut episode of her PragerU propaganda show. So we'll skip to Amala shares her story of being a leftist activist.
Now, let's talk about this. Taylor, obviously, we know, I've already told everybody I used to be a leftist. Were you ever a leftist in your life, or have anything that deviated from, mainstream conservative belief?
It sucks that there's no, like, left-wing people funding people like her. Like, there's nothing like that. You've got a bunch of people on the left. Everyone on the left is independent. And very few are this big. Like, there's countless...
Hello, everyone.
There are countless right-wingers with a platform as big as hers or bigger. And, like, very few people on the left who come even close to this. There's, like, Hassan. And that's almost it. What do you want? You name Vosh? I guess. But no, there's tons of people on the right with this level of reach or greater, very few people on the left. It's because they get funding from PragerU. You've got her, you've got like Brett Cooper, who's also like Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro's version of this character. And unfortunately, these groups, these horrific hate groups like PragerU, have all the cards. Unfortunately, they got all the money. Because they are, you want to go top level on this. They are, at the behest of capital, and leftists or even like progressive liberals tend to not be at the behest of capital. And so they're not willing to invest money in people like Hassan. But they will invest in people like her who are willing to spread their bullshit for money. But it's just unfortunate overall. All right, let's get into it finally.
And we're going to get there, and you're going to eventually learn that I did not have an aha moment. There was a long and gradual process to getting red-pilled, as we like to call it. So I'll tell you a bit about my story. So,
conservatives, even like cool conservatives, cool young conservatives, are so fucking cringe, dude.
Amala Ekpunobi, 21 years old now, tell me, my sister, and my brother that she was crying and so emotional because she never thought a country as racist as America was going to be able to elect a black president. And I remember hearing that at 8 years old and going, oh, what? So this is a weird thing to have a black president? This isn't...
Yeah. It is a really weird thing to have a black president in America. It's happened exactly once in 250 years. And then we've had 2 more white dudes after him. So yeah. And very likely we'll have another white dude after him, frankly. So yeah. It is pretty weird. And I don't know if she's going to imply that it somehow isn't. But let's see.
This hasn't happened before. And I remember thinking in that moment that blackness must be something that's really important. And my mother made an effort to teach me that blackness was something that was to be loved, and blackness was something that was great, although there were a lot of people that didn't see it that way, and that our country had sort of shaped itself around this narrative and this standard of whiteness, and I fell outside of that standard.
Okay, yeah? Is any of that incorrect? Like, would even like the most unhinged conservative, is she about to say that, and then I eventually learned that that's not true? That we didn't create this country with, like she just said, the lens of whiteness? I'm very confused as to where this is going.
So life could have been a little harder for me because of that. So that was 8-year-old me.
Yeah?
And again, my mother was a single mother. I was making protest signs for the protests that they were going to go out and do. And slowly but surely, as a young person, I would learn this and learn exactly what I was doing, and come to have a deep admiration for it and an appreciation for it. And I found that that was something that was very much encouraged on at least this side of politics. And we'll talk about whether or not that is actually something that conservatives do as well. But as a young kid, being told a lot, you're the future.
What? Is she gonna be like, no? Dude. What do you mean? You got PragerU Groomers Edition. What do you mean?
In the background, also, we had police shootings that were starting to become a massive narrative. I remember
Narrative. Not like an issue. It's not that police shootings of black people were an issue that needed to get addressed at the systemic level. It's a narrative. That's my thing with her. Pay attention to this. Her word choice is so specific. Watch my Jubilee video with her in it. I think it's the first video on this channel, on YouTube. She uses very specific, carefully chosen words that are designed to steer you very subtly toward conservative beliefs and concepts and ideas. Just there alone, she did it. Framing the issue of police killing young black men, for the most part, or just black people in general, as a narrative and not an issue, and not a real tangible problem that can be identified at the systemic level. That is what she's doing here. And she does this all the time very well. And I don't think a normal viewer will be able to catch that if you're not really looking for it. I'm watching this video looking for things like that so I can tell you about it. But a normal person watching this, especially the audience for this video, I don't think is going to catch those things.
As a young teenager, hearing about Tamir Rice and Eric Garner and Michael Brown, and really seeing the Black
What's she going to
Lives
say? They all
Matter
deserved it?
He made the police officer aware that he did have a firearm in his car, but that he owned it lawfully and legally, and that he had no intention of reaching for it. And when asked to reach for his wallet by the police officer shot him. And during this whole encounter, which was absolutely horrific to watch, his girlfriend and his girlfriend's daughter were in this car as well watching this. So you could hear the screams from the girlfriend.
Yeah, it's just a narrative, dude. There is no real systemic cause for a police officer to do that. That's just a narrative, a leftist radical narrative.
Or you could hear the police officer in the background sort of freaking out over what he had just done. But that video was given to me and sold to me with this narrative of racism, that this is something that happens all the time, and that I, as a black woman, should be really cognizant of it. Not even through my own victimhood of dying at the hands of a police officer, although I did believe that, but that I should be some sort of ally for the black males in my community, in my life, and in America. So think about all those things happening at once.
So unless she's going to circle back, she did just hand wave it completely, as there is none whatsoever, no level of systemic racism that causes police officers to act this way towards black individuals specifically. That is what she's saying right now. And I don't even know where to begin on, like, showing you that that's not the case. Like, I will flash over there probably like 3 or 4 peer-reviewed studies on this at the systemic level on this real issue, not a narrative, a real tangible problem that is happening in America today. Insane to me that she just hand-waved it and didn't even like offer any sort of explanation. Like I said, maybe she'll get to it, but no sort of explanation as to why it's not a systemic problem, why there's no worth in examining this issue from a systemic perspective. I hope she's going to get to it. I'm guessing she won't because she knows, again, the audience for this video will not care. But hopefully the audience of this video will. Maybe you're a conservative watching this. I do get a lot of conservatives who watch my videos. Please, you have to understand what's going on here. And if you want to explore what I showed you there, please do. But no, everything else about leftist ideology aside, forget everything else you think a liberal or a leftist has told you. Do your own research. Fuck it. Do your own research on whether police killings of black people is a systemic problem facing America. It really is, I don't want to get into this forever, but it's a symptom of real systemic problems facing black people in America. It is but one of many symptoms, but it is insane to me how she just completely hand-waved it. That's bonkers.
This influence of leftist ideology from my parental figure, getting it from social media.
Does she have the same headphones as me? Let's keep an eye out. I think they might be this. She probably has this is like the cheapest version of the Audio Technica, whatever. I've had these for, I don't even know how many years, but they look very similar.
Teachers who were very open about their leftism as well, and then seeing it on mainstream media.
I don't believe she ever had a leftist teacher. Like, what? One of her middle school teachers in Central Florida was said that they were fine with gay people. Is that what she means? I don't think she went to college. I think did she drop out of college? But no, I doubt very much she had any teachers influenced by leftist ideology of what? Science? Did you learn the periodic table and you're like, this must be leftist ideology because a scientist came up with it?
Would become in high school and graduating, but I was constantly arguing with people, constantly picking fights. Again, I lived in a super conservative area, so there was plenty of kids who were willing to argue with me over the things that they believed, whether it was about women's right to an abortion or open borders or policing in America or patriot.
No, complete lie. Nobody is talking about open borders. This is how if you know, you know. This is bullshit told to conservatives. She is saying, I heard people talking about open borders. Dude, I reside, online in leftist spaces. The people I interact with are progressives or leftists, okay? Nobody's talking about open borders. Nobody. I would bet my entire life she has not had a single conversation with somebody on the subject of open borders in her time back then. Her high school peers were not talking about open borders. She says that because she knows the people who will watch this will go, grr, open borders, that's what leftists want. And whether or not that's what leftists want aside, no one's talking about it at all, period. Immigration reform, sure, but open borders? And here's the kicker. When she says leftist, she's talking about people who support Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton in that era, 2016, when she would be doing her leftist thing, quote unquote. People like that. And no liberal liberals, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, none of them are talking about open borders. And then you have progressives, Bernie Sanders, AOC, none of them are talking about open borders. That's how you know everything coming out of this woman's mouth is complete distilled propaganda designed to scare the viewer watching this, the target audience for this.
All women should have the right to an abortion under any circumstances. I would talk about how white students...
You would say that? You would say under any circumstances women should have the right to abortion? Even leftists don't think that. No leftist is yeah, if a woman who's 9 months and 1 day pregnant decides to just abort the baby, that's totally reasonable and ethical, and we will just shrug our shoulders. Yeah. No one believes that. More distilled bullshit to scare the target audience for this video.
To be allies, I would talk about reparations, I would talk about restorative justice, and I considered myself to be pretty well educated in these things, but only in the sense that I knew the talking points that I was taught, and I knew the catchphrases and the slogan.
I said this before, and the more she's talking about it, the more it is becoming clear to me. I said this in the previous video. When she was a leftist, she never knew what the fuck she was talking about. She maybe knew the talking points, as she is admitting here, but she never, at any point, had a firm grasp of the real underlying concepts that she needed to understand.
Or really not the best of my abilities with the best dogma that I had. And
yeah, it's not good to only have the dogma. I agree with that.
When you couple this ideology and dogma with the hatred that you feel and the anger that you feel towards you white people, towards America, towards our institutions and systems, towards the schooling system, because remember...
Guys, don't be angry. Don't be angry. Okay, Amala, you're not watching this. That's okay. Conservative. If you agree with her right now. Is it okay, fine. None of the things the political left talk about are real. It's all fake. We're imagining it. Great. Is it ever okay to be angry about potential issues? Is it ever okay to be passionate or frustrated or, like she said, angry? If so, what is she talking about then? Like that, she's like, the aesthetics of being angry, I don't really understand. And the other aspect is, are you trying to fucking argue with me that conservatives are just like calm, rational calculators? Because they are the most fucking angry right now. Capitol riot, whatever, they literally stormed our Capitol based on the false pretense of a stolen election. So you're talking about the optics of just being angry at your fellow American. Like, one, there are points where it is reasonable to be frustrated or angry with the state of things. Even if you don't think we should be now, there are lines to be drawn where it is appropriate.
Or everything is pitted against you in this vein of thought.
What if everything is pitted against you? Should you be angry? Literally, what if? Let's pretend that the scenario she's talking about is possible to some extent. Okay, fuck it. Is it okay to be angry in those scenarios or not?
I was angry. And I remember that my best friends would talk about reverse racism, which now I truly believe to be just racism. But this concept that white people cannot experience racism because they hold the power in this country. I'm sure you've heard that.
It is one of those, like, I don't know if she's just completely unaware of what's going on or is intentionally, misconstruing, leaving out facts. It's sometimes hard to tell. In this scenario, where she's talking about reverse racism, let's break it down just a little bit. She's basically saying that she believes that leftists, maybe she believed this, I don't know, that leftists think that, like, black people can't be racist towards white people. Specifically with reverse racism, it's like saying that, like, I don't know, affirmative action is racist because it, like, is a tiny thing we do to try and elevate black people out of the systemic poverty that we as a nation put them in over centuries of slavery and forced discrimination, legal discrimination. But no, nobody's saying that, like, a black person can't be racist to white people. What I guess the left is saying broadly is that it'd be very difficult for black Americans to have any sort of systemic racist power over white Americans as it currently stands. Now, could it happen if black people got all the power and decided to instill an apartheid state in America? Sure. Yeah, there you go. Racism, boom. But as of right now, white Americans hold virtually all power in the country. So if we're going to flex our racist muscle, it's going to go top down. There's almost nothing black Americans can do to be racist to white Americans. Meanwhile, there are countless things white Americans can do from a systemic level that are and can be racist to Black Americans. So again, I don't know if she just like doesn't understand that, never understood that, or just is intentionally like pretending it doesn't exist, like not talking about it, because if she talked about it, it would mean that the target audience would have to hear about like actual, information rather than horrific propaganda. No one's saying a Black person can't be racist to a white person. The point is, white Americans don't, under any capacity, experience systemic racism. That's the point that I think leftists talk about. And if you want to point out where and how, Amala, I'm talking to you, or Amala fans, how white people experience racism, I would love to hear it. And you can't say the existence of affirmative action is racism toward white people, okay? You can look at like any graph. White people hold all the money. The vast majority of our government is white. Anyone who has power, business owners, CEOs, the vast majority of them are white. And so white people hold virtually all systemic power in the country, and Black people don't hold almost any power in the country from a systemic level. And things like affirmative action are just a tiny, minuscule way we can attempt to make up for the, like I said before, generations of systemic inequity that we forced upon Black people through things like slavery and, Jim Crow era segregation. Giving Black people a step stool when white people have had a 10,000-foot ladder is not racism towards white people, okay? This reverse racism thing. And again, I can't tell if she's bullshitting or just doesn't understand these things. And it kind of fits into my theory that, like, she never really understood the leftist or liberal things she believed.
And because white people held all the power, the privilege, they had higher socioeconomic status, it wasn't possible for you to be racist towards white people. So my white friends would talk to me about how they're seeing all this race.
No. It's very difficult to be systemically racist against white people. That's all we're trying to say. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong about this from a liberal or leftist perspective. That's how I understand it. No one's saying you can't be racist towards white people. You can. You can be a Black person and say, I think white people are inferior to Black people genetically. Boom. You are racist to white people. That person is a racist. Every single person alive, left, right, whatever the fuck, will tell you that individual is racist. But no, you cannot be systemically racist to white people in America. Good fucking luck. Try. I'm begging you to someone try. That's all we're talking about. So again, I can't tell right here if she just has no clue what the fuck she's talking about or is intentionally leaving out these key facts.
This is stuff towards white people on the internet. And I would sit there and go,
Yeah, sure. You can say racist stuff to white people if you're a non-white person. That is not at all what the left is talking about when we talk about racism at the systemic level. And that's really what we talk about when we talk about racism. It's systemic racism. Individual anecdotes are not what we talk. This is more of this fucking individual anecdote bullshit I always fucking rag conservatives about. All they talk about are little individual anecdotes to justify their beliefs. I saw a Black person say something racist to a white person. That means that, like, reverse racism, blah, 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 blah. Like, no, of course a Black person can say something racist to a white person. Of course a Black person can have racist beliefs all day. But that is not what the left is talking about.
And I was invited to speak. So I said, absolutely, I will do that. And unlucky for myself, I have a video of me doing that and giving that speech, and I'm going to react to it here today with you guys and hopefully debunk some of the things I said.
And while I came here today to witness a movement led by young people just like me, I also came to talk about how this issue has a disproportionate effect on the people of color in our communities.
Okay, I'm gonna react to you first. She's like laughing at that. Is that not true? I wish they would explain what she's wrong about. Maybe it's one of those things where, like, they're assuming the target audience just kind of inherently knows that, like, what? Of course what she's saying here is wrong. But I don't really understand, from my perspective, what this 16-year-old version of her is saying that was incorrect so far. That is so, like, laughably incorrect. The idea that, like, yeah, gun violence affects Black and brown communities at the systemic level. That's hilarious.
And it's because I was constantly being told by people, this is what you need to do. You're doing the right thing. We need voices like yours. Nobody's going to listen to us, so they need to listen to you. And I thought, yes, I don't need to understand the world. I need to change the world, and I need to transform it. And that's what I did.
So she is admitting what my theory has been from the previous video to now. When she was on that stage, she had no fucking clue the reality of what she was saying. She was just saying shit. It is clear that she just had no clue what she was talking about. She did not understand the world that she was in.
Now, it's funny because sometimes when I go back and listen to myself, or I go back and look at old things that I wrote as a leftist, you know how when somebody's talking to you and you're like...
Also, like, I have not seen any real evidence that she was ever a leftist. That's another one of those, like, does she not know what a leftist is? Or is she using that term intentionally wrong because she knows the target audience for this video thinks, you know, anyone to the left of Donald J. Trump is a leftist. You know, Joe Biden is a leftist to the millions of people who watch her. I have yet to hear a single thing that would not fall under just, like, generic American liberalism, like progressive liberalism, but, like, leftist? Like, not seen any evidence of that yet.
You're almost there. You're almost there, but... And then they just jump off the cliff and they're completely wrong. What I just said there is that Black people and young Black and brown people in America are far more likely to be impacted by gun violence in this country. A completely and utterly true statement, what I just said. But am I giving it with the right connotation? Am I giving it with the right facts and the right narrative here? No, I'm talking about this in reference to white shooters of Black people. I'm talking about this when it comes to police officers, when I should be focusing on, you know, what we call now Black on Black crime. And eventually we'll have to take a deep dive into that in another episode.
Dude. The systemic racism, the, like, institutional, deep-rooted, ingrained systemic racism that this country is built upon is the cause of that Black-on-Black violence. I would love to hear what she thinks is the reason for that. I can't even, like, fake an answer that, like, one of these conservatives would give here. Like, these sorts of, like, shooting crimes are 100% one-to-one tied to socioeconomic inequality, poverty. And those are issues that affect, you know, Black and brown people more in the United States due to the issues of systemic racism.
Talked about that a little bit in my policing episode. If you guys want to go back and watch that, it'll be the video right before this on this channel, where we talk about really the disparate impact with gun violence when it comes to Black on Black crime and Black police encounters.
Again, just listen to her words, dude. Please listen to her words.
We need to talk about how people of color are much more likely to lose their lives staring down the barrel of a gun.
Again, true, but largely incorrect.
Why? Why?
And you'll find that people on the left love to use this as a talking point. The disparate impact of gun violence has been generations and generations. The disparate impact of mass incarceration has been generations and generations. The socioeconomic decline of the Black family is generations and generations. And then you look into it and you go, ooh, no, it isn't, because actually the Black family was going through sort of this golden age before we instituted this welfare state and started having these conversations.
She's talking about this, like, golden age for Black people. Jim Crow era? Like, post-slavery, like, implementation of welfare policies. So, like, you know, you had, like, what? The New Deal. In the 60s, there was the like the Great Society programs, attributing the like so-called like halting of progress in the Black community specifically due to the creation of these welfare policies overlooks an unthinkable amount of like complex historical socioeconomic factors. These policies were implemented to give a tiny, not nearly large enough safety net toward like poverty and like socioeconomic inequality, but it didn't solve the like ongoing systemic racism in that time that Black people experienced in like housing, education, anywhere in the labor market, even in the North in that time. Those played the biggest role in like maintaining our current racial disparities. Not welfare was created, like not like tiny shitty American welfare was created, and that's why Black people are still in poverty. That's an absurd, insane take that is not in any capacity backed by any sort of fact or historical analysis. It's incorrect and incredibly reductive to just say, yeah, like Black people were doing great after slavery ended, you know, ignoring the whole Jim Crow era segregation. Black people were doing great post-slavery. We were in a golden age. And then welfare came in the 30s and then subsequently in the 60s. And that's why we're at where we're at. Completely wrong, completely incorrect, 0% based in reality, but it like almost sounds good. So again, like the target audience for this video is going to eat that up.
Around what it means to be Black and identifying Blackness and talking about racism and all these things that sort of draw our attention away from real problems. So, oh, yikes, here we go.
And in the case of the Parkland shooting and many before it, we need to talk about how shooters of white backgrounds are referred to as children, former students, mentally ill individuals.
She's like laughing at this. This stuff is real, dude. The way the media portrays Black criminals versus white criminals, you are trying to fucking tell me with a straight, giggling ass face that that is not true? That is not the case, that is not the reality we live in? So I don't know if, again, she just like, when she was here, she had no clue what she was saying. So either she like didn't ever learn it or like knows it now and is like faking this. But yeah, why would you laugh at that? That is true. That is real. I have already flashed something on the screen for you as evidence of this. That's insane to me that you can say that with a straight face. And of course, there's no evidence to support what she's saying.
And lonely and confused rather than what they actually are, and that is terrorists.
It's the confidence for me. Oh my gosh, I almost want to cry watching this. You know, a lot of people say like, you're such a liar, you were never a leftist. And you know what? I wish I was lying, and I wish I...
No. Okay, I think I maybe said something similar to that in my previous video where I said like, I don't know, I couldn't find any evidence of this, like this sort of thing from her. I was like, is she making it up? I don't know. Obviously that's not true. But I stand by, and now with significant evidence, her own admission that when she was this person, she had no fucking clue what she was talking about, which explains a lot anyway, whether she did this or not. The fact that she had no fucking idea what she was talking about also explains a lot of who this, you know, garbage human being is today.
I did not have video evidence of this happening in my life. Okay, let's talk about what I just said. So I said, so often in the case of mass shooters, we talk about how we call them kids, we call them former students, we call them mentally ill, we call them lonely and confused, instead of calling them what they actually are, terrorists.
Yeah, that last little bit is like maybe some lib shit. Maybe, like I'm just gonna say maybe, because we clearly have a problem with white supremacist terrorism. Show me every nearly every mass shooting of this sort, almost all of them have, you know, some connection to right-wing extremism. Like, that is an absolute quantifiable fact. Again, boom, here's the evidence over there. You can see it. And I hope those conservatives are watching this, because the evidence is right there. We have a major issue with white supremacist terrorism in the United States.
This is not an argument. And it would have been, I wish somebody had just grabbed me and been like, you know what, you can be all of those things at once, and actually not focusing on the mental health aspect of it, not focusing on that lonely and confused part of it, is actually going to cause more of these things to occur. And as I've gotten older, obviously, and looked into these issues, mental health, things like being on SSRIs, antidepressants, and things like that are closely linked to whether or not you commit mass shootings.
Is she... I can't tell. Is she trying to say getting on an SSRI will cause you to commit mass shootings? Or is she saying properly addressing your mental health issues by getting on an SSRI will prevent you from doing things like that, that's the truth. But if she's going to be like, nah, people on SSRIs, that's the issue, that'll be fun to hear.
And that's something that nobody wants to talk about when we have these discussions.
No, everyone wants to have that conversation. Everyone knows that it's also a mental health problem. It's just also a gun problem. That's your thing. You don't want to address this as a gun problem. We want to address it as both. It is both a problem of having so easy access to guns that anyone with any issue whatsoever can just walk into any store and buy a fucking killing machine. That is an issue. No one's saying ban every gun. Virtually no one's saying that. On top of that, yes, on the left, we are saying we need to address mental health care.
If you were white and male, I was done with you. I already had my narrative.
That's not a healthy ideal. That's not a healthy way to live. I don't think most people on the left think that way. You probably find some people who are like this, of course. But virtually no one is like, that's healthy. That's a good way to live your life. Which is, again, she clearly was not any sort of like leftist. I don't know how else to put it.
I was being told that when I went to the grocery store with my mother in my white rural area, that white people would look at me and my mom and give us bad looks. And when I asked, well, why would somebody give me and my mom a bad look? I'm just with my mom in the grocery store. I'm picking up some apples and putting them in the cart. What's going on? And I would be told that it was because I was black and my mom was white, and white people did not think that we should be paired together, did not think that my mom should have married a black man and had a black child. So learn that at 5, 6 years old.
Again, you're saying that that's like not the case? When if you were told every white person would think that, yeah, you were told wrong. That is obviously not true, especially nowadays. Maybe as far as like the early 90s, you could have a significant portion of the population not thinking that. But today, obviously, no, most white people are not going to think that way. But again, this specific individual anecdote obviously is wrong. The overwhelming majority of liberals and leftists will not tell you that like most white people will be against miscegenation.
The rate of death by gun homicide for black and brown people exceeds those among white people in all 50 states.
Why?
We need to start to mend this.
Yeah. Good fucking question, dude. Why?
Disparity by declaring all gun violence unacceptable and recognizing the fact that this nation's criminal justice system is based on racism and systemic oppression.
Yeah, 100% true that she just said, whether she believed it or not, that statement right there, that our criminal justice system is incredibly racist, is 100% true and backed by a mountain of evidence.
What a non sequitur argument.
Not a non sequitur. Not even a non sequitur at all.
I don't even know how to debunk that because it makes no sense. Oh my gosh.
You're just gonna skip it. No, dude, you don't know how to debunk that, because what Younger You said was just true. Just straight up true. We have a broken, racist criminal justice system. Attempt to debunk that in any capacity. I'm begging you. You can't, which is why you just laugh at it and move on, and your audience goes and moves on too. But no. There's a reason she can't debunk that and is like chuckling about moving on.
The same system that allowed a police officer to shoot Stephen Clark 20 times in his backyard a few days ago.
Whoa! Getting shot 20 times! Whoa! Keep going!
Are you fucking stupid? You think this is like a funny joke? Or do I need to explain this to you? No one's wooing the fact that that person got shot 20 times. They're wooing the fact that you're saying that person got shot 20 times because of racist systemic institutions. That's what they're cheering for. Recognizing that. And recognizing that is the first step among many toward fixing that. But recognizing it is the first thing, and it seems as though you never understood it, and now you're actively saying that those institutions don't exist. There is no systemic racism against black people, which is absurd.
Color to prison for 10% longer sentences than white people for the same crime.
It failed to mention why in those studies that talk about sentencing and that disparate impact on black people do not look at why that's the case, whether or not the person was a repeat offender, how many people were put in danger during the incident, how many people could have died, what weapon was used during the incident, how violent the crime was. Yet they go and they put out...
Citation needed, dude. As far as I know, here, let's pull some shit up. So this is the like major study I think a lot of people bring up. This was from 2017, and it did find that, in fact, black male offenders received sentences on average about 20% longer than similarly situated white male offenders, even when things like prior criminal records and other sentencing factors were accounted for. So yes, again, another scenario where she is just completely making shit up, not citing any sources. And here I am citing a source from the United States Sentencing Commission during the Trump era, by the way, in case the conservative, watching this needs, I don't know, something to help you understand why something like this is credible. No. These studies do, in fact, take those factors into consideration. She just completely and utterly made that up with no evidence. But yeah, no, these studies do, in fact, take those things into account. Furthermore, there are countless studies that find that, like, bail judges are racially biased against black people specifically, and studies that show that like black drivers, all things considered, are stopped more often than white drivers, and that like the bar for searching black and Hispanic drivers' cars were lower than that for white drivers. So again, she is just completely and utterly making shit up to be an effective propagandist, and to her audience, they will not fact check that statement. That is what I'm here for. And hopefully you're in her audience. The things she's talking about are not true. But do your own research. Read the report if you really care to understand these things. Don't just take her statement or my statement for fact. Read the report yourself. Report: black men get longer sentences for the same federal crime as white men. An analysis found black men's sentences 19.1% longer than white men's, even after controlling for criminal history and other factors. This is what I was just talking about. So these studies control for those factors. Her saying that they don't is just making shit up to convince you that systemic racism isn't real, when the reality, real research done on these topics, points to a different story.
I believe now the stat is that black people get 20% higher sentences than white people for the same crime. And again, no mention to ask to why.
Dude, literally what we were just talking about. And yes, these studies control for these factors. She is literally literally just making shit up, completely disconnected from reality, because she knows this is part of their strategy. She understands that she can just say 100, half-truths, misconstrued truths, or outright lies, and her audience will not fact-check a single one of them. Why would you not just lie about everything when no one in your audience is going to fact-check? And that's how conservatives are able to win so easily. They don't need to have any sort of study, any sort of real systemic analysis, nothing. They can just literally, as we are watching right now, just lie and or make shit up, and their audience will buy it. The exact study she's referring to controls for these factors that she's saying they don't, which these studies always do, as far as I know. The studies I've seen control for these factors. Again, she is just making shit up.
Same system that mentally evaluated Dylan Roof, a white shooter who took 9 black lives as they prayed, not once, but twice, even though he said many times that he knew exactly what he was doing. This is unacceptable and needs to be addressed, because where is the...
Yeah, okay, ignore that. Yeah, let's just ignore that. Ignore the unignorable. Go for it.
Justice in this system? And where is the justice in this nation's gun control legislation?
This is so sad, dude. She's laughing because trying to tell her audience this is all ridiculous. But the real sad part is that this person had no clue what they were talking about.
We need to seize this moment and this power, not only for school safety, but for everyone's safety.
Yeah.
We should feel safe wherever we are, whoever we are. And we will march on these streets today, and believe me when I say that we will march to the polls.
We will Pokemon go to the polls. Yeah, there is some like lib level, shit going on here that is, kind of funny from a leftist perspective too, but yeah, whatever. Who cares about that shit?
I could not even vote.
Yeah, that's kind of fun.
You're going to walk them straight up to the poll center and then be like, all right, now you guys go in and vote. I'm going to stay out here and keep screaming at people.
Right.
Oh,
See,
shut
guys,
the fuck up,
yeah, this is your polling site. Go ahead in there and make some changes, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. Okay, I think we're almost done here. Let's finish it up. Oh, my gosh.
We all need change, and we need it now, not later, now.
Woo, I think that's it. Wow, a whole lot of nothing was said.
No, actually, the best part is she was saying things that were true. They were, it's not like she was citing specific facts in that speech. So it was, as the fucking dork over here was saying, surface level to an extent. But you dig into any of the things she said. And there is genuine analysis being done, genuine studies that you can find, as I've already shown probably numerous times in this edit, of the veracity of what she's saying. So no, whether or not you understood it then, whether or not you understand it now, she was talking about some real shit back then.
There, yet cheered on so passionately by a crowd.
Go fuck yourself.
If you're not listening closely, then it doesn't sound like you're saying nothing. It sounds like, wow, these people really know what's up, and they wouldn't be so passionate about this if there wasn't something going on here. And
there was something. Oh my fucking god, dude! I'm going to lose my fucking shit, man.
Wasn't a grave injustice that's being protested, and wasn't something that I need to join my voice to and start screaming too.
What?
Yes.
That's what that. It's almost like the mob effect. It's just but sucking you into a whole world.
Yeah, that does not ever happen in conservative rallies. It just doesn't. That is a leftist exclusive problem.
Yeah, and it's again,
and again, no one in that crowd were leftists. That's a bunch of libs. Let's face it.
I was so disconnected from this. I was speaking in this speech as if, these communities look no different than my community. What do you...
Okay, I think I'm done with this. It is somewhat vindicating, to know that I was correct in what I said in my previous video about her, about how when she was on the left, quote unquote, she was never a leftist. She was clearly like some kind of progressive liberal. But when she was not, a far right commentator, she, in her own words, had no idea what she was talking about, which explains a lot about who she is now.